Thank you, Tim. After hearing all of these fiery speakers, I feel a little lonesome up here. I'm not an orator. I never have been. I'm not a politician, although when you run for sheriff, I guess that qualifies you somewhat as a politician. But I'm damn sure a Montanan. I've been a Montanian all my life, and I'm fourth generation Bitterrooter. Sheriff Mack gave you a little bit of rundown. Let me kind of explain a little bit about me. Now's my time to tell you who I am. I'm no hero. God forbid that I should ever be thought of as a hero. I'm just a man that did his job. I grew up in the Bitterroot. 6 kids in my family. We lived a pretty good life back in the day. The Bitterroot has changed an awful lot since then. My brothers and sisters grew up kind of like the old TV 50s shows, you know how that was. We had a great life. But then when I turned 15, something about my hormone system kind of changed me a little bit, and I turned into a little asshole. I couldn't get along with the teachers. I couldn't accept authority over me. And I got kicked out of school enough times to where finally, what should have been my junior year, I'm in the sophomore year, and I got kicked out of school permanently. I was 16 years old. My father said, well, you ain't hanging around the house doing nothing, so you better figure out what you're going to do. I joined the Marine Corps. 17 years old, 17 days after my 17th birthday, I'm standing in San Diego going, oh crap, what the hell did I do here? Well, let me tell you, Vietnam was not even a talk about word back in those days. I joined in 63. In 65, I was Southeast Asia, while my class of 65 was graduating from high school. I graduated with a different kind of a degree in Southeast Asia. I got to drink a little water. It gets awful dry up here. Marine Corps in 1967, I bummed around. Came back to the Bitterroot. Wasn't doing much. Got married. And then, surprisingly, I got a job in law enforcement with the sheriff's office. The sheriff at the time knew who I was because I'd harassed him quite a bit when I was younger. But apparently he must have saw something in me. Asked me if I was looking for work, and he hired me as a deputy sheriff. I worked for him for 15 years till he decided to retire. He asked me if I would consider running, and he would back me. I thought about it for a little bit, and I said, hell yeah, I'll do it. And I did it. I never thought about things much when I first started as sheriff. It was a job. I was in law enforcement. I liked the job. But as I took on that responsibility, I began understanding what the Constitution really meant to the job that I was doing. I swore an oath to the Constitution, the state of Montana, and the United States of America. And I decided I probably better understand a little bit about what this is. Not just arresting people and working for the county as a law enforcement officer, but I also have an obligation to protect people's constitutional rights. So I began studying the Constitution. I began reading things that I'd never thought about before. And I start getting an understanding of where I stand. Well, in 1994, Bill Clinton and the Congress decided to pass what's known as the Brady Law. I had read it as it was passing its way through Congress, and I'm going, what the hell? They can't do this. It'll never pass. Well, it passed. Clinton signed it into law. I'm thinking, now what am I going to do? I went to a big meeting in Helena, Montana, where the Department of Justice sent all their high-powered, perfumed-up lawyers to explain to the sheriffs, who were the responsible parties, local law enforcement officers, how they were going to help us implement this law. So I went to this meeting, all the sheriffs in the state of Montana, several chiefs of police, Department of Justice officials, and I listened to these federal lawyers explain how they were going to help me. I listened for about a half an hour and then I said, this is crazy. So I raised my hand and I said, I have a question. And he said, yeah, Sheriff, what can we help you with? I said, what are you going to do when I don't do this thing? Oh my God, blah, 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 blah. They give me all this crap about how they can help me do this and that. And I says, you know, I'm not going to do it because this is patently unconstitutional. I'm no lawyer, but I'm not an idiot. I can read. I said, I ain't doing it. So I got up and I walked out. I figured several sheriffs will follow me out. Not a one of them came out that door with me. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. Now what am I going to do? I've got my foot in a pickle jar here. So as I'm driving back to Hamilton, I'm thinking, man, there's only two things I can do. I can either quit because I'm not doing it, or I can take some form of action, like sue them. So I was able to make contact with different friends of mine who put me in touch with the NRA, who then decided they would back me financially in a lawsuit and provided a lawyer for me. And the first thing we did was get the federal judge, Judge Lovell, here in Helena, to issue an injunction that prohibited the government from prosecuting me during the pendency of my action. Richard Mack had filed the first suit in Arizona. I didn't even know about Richard Mack until I found out he had filed a similar suit. And because he and I are in the same Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, when our judges issued opinions that the law was unconstitutional, the government right away appealed it to the Ninth Circuit. Because we're both in that district, they combined our cases. That's how Richard Mack and I came to know each other. I first met him when we went to San Francisco to listen to the argument in front of a 3-judge panel, which, if you know the Ninth Circuit Court, we knew that was a waste of time, which they promptly ruled against us. They overturned our federal judges. Thankfully, other sheriffs around the country, there were actually 7 sheriffs that began this lawsuit. Other sheriffs had sued, and Sheriff Coog in Texas received a favorable ruling from his appellate court in Texas, which now set us on a course, because you can't have 2 appellate courts with differing opinions about the same law. The Supreme Court, we filed an appeal to the Supreme Court, and thankfully the Supreme Court accepted our appeal, and we were on our way. As Richard Mack mentioned, we argued that case in December '96. It was the last case decided before the end of their term in 1997. And people tell us that the most important cases are held off till the last. And we got a 5-4 decision. Hallelujah. Now, I'm no lawyer, but some people on the other side said, well, that's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. I always thought it was a big deal. They don't like it. In fact, Sarah Brady called me a renegade sheriff. Proud to be known as a renegade sheriff. More water. I'm not going to go into all this COVID stuff, mask wearing. I don't wear one. I always figured that looked bad for a retired cop to wear a mask. What the hell, I ain't in an armed robbery or anything. Huh? Jarhead, they call us. But I'm not talking about COVID, any of this other garbage. What I want to talk about is people understanding what's going on around this world. You think our politicians, and I'm not going to talk about specific campaign things, but politicians, when they run for office, some of them have ideals that they will uphold, and they will uphold the oath that they've taken, but many of them, this is a get-rich thing. They get jobs, sometimes 40, 50 years in the same job. We need to talk about term limits, that's for sure. But then they get themselves positions that have perks that you and I would only dream of. And they write laws that they don't have to obey themselves because they exempt themselves. What kind of deal is that?
Security.
Yeah, security for them. St. Peter is watching. There'll be a reckoning. We won't see it. They're going to see that reckoning someday, and shame on them. They're going to find out what's such a great deal what they do. But I'm here to tell you, people need to be involved. You need to be involved at the local level, the state level, federal level. You need to put the feet of your politicians, your county commissioners, your mayors, your sheriffs, your chiefs of police, your politicians at the federal level, Senate. Say what?
Your local health boards.
Yeah. Everybody needs to be pressured to do the right thing. They're not going to do the right thing unless they're forced to. And the only way you can force them is to confront them when they do the wrong thing. That means going to their meetings, questioning them, asking them the hard questions. Don't ask them the softball questions that I see from time to time. Like, and again, I wouldn't talk about politics, but I saw a deal the other day where Biden was in front of a CNN reporter and he says, if you were a tree, what kind of a tree would you like to be? Oh, my God. That's a tough one. So, we don't want to be doing that. At any rate, I'm for the Constitution. I fought for the Constitution, and I don't want people to let me down by not being active in supporting your own damn constitutional rights. You have rights. If you don't exercise them, it's like any muscle in your body. It's going to get flabby. And we know what happens when we get flabby. It ain't going to work. Okay, I'm going to quit talking. I don't like to talk that much, unless you talk to my wife, of course. Thank you for being here. God bless America.